Hello everyone, welcome back to the KMTRADERS channel. So this is the full market analysis volume 122. So just had to redo the analysis because the volume didn't work and my mic was turned off. So all of the analysis is pretty much been erased from last week. So you're not able to look at last week's analysis, but I've pretty much already done the this week's analysis already for you guys, so hopefully this video won't be too long. But yeah, we'll jump straight into it. So we'll start off with gold. So what I was looking at last week was this sell-off idea, but ideally this week we're looking for a rally towards the upside, and I was mentioning the 1760, this level here. If we stay above this, we're looking for buys. However, if we drop lower, there is a possible scenario that we could be looking for sells. Okay, so this is pretty much going to be very similar to EU and Nzd Usd and AUD as well. So again, if we take a look here, so I believe EU last week we looked at some sells, we had a nice drop off, and interestingly enough this week we started to see a divergence form here on the RSI. That's why I had this drawn here. So we're potentially looking out for either this pop in the upside move, like a nice bullish momentum move, and if so, it could change, or it could start to bring a significant pullback to the upside, and depending on obviously how far this can go, because this has just been dropping and dropping, as you know. And then the second scenario is that if we started to get some sort of pullback, little or small, or moderately, sized, I guess, through the midweek, there is a possible move that, we could continue the main trend to the downside, and that would probably look like basically more sells. So we're probably looking out for something like this. So this is why I've got that second scenario drawn there. And then the Nzd Usd, again, as you can see, similar. So we were looking for basically this momentum to drop to really push us to the upside, and so this is why we're potentially looking at some buying opportunities. But I'm also not going to be blinded by the fact that price has just been dropping and dropping and dropping. So that's why this second scenario is there. One thing I haven't done though is looked at this RSI. So as we can see, price has just been dropping and dropping. If we get rid of that, and there is a divergence forming, so it's quite interesting to look at that from a different angle or perspective. But as you can see, this is why I'm so adamant that something's going to pop. Again, it's just a matter of when and how it actually performs. So looking at AUD USD, which should be very similar. So as we can see, prices almost kind of pulling back. Again, we don't necessarily know if this is a pullback to go lower, or if it's going to be the push that's going to continuously push higher and higher. So that's why we have these two kind of scenarios. So it could look something like this. Not necessarily gonna, it's not necessarily going to push straight up like so. It's probably going to do like a little push up and then down type of thing. Or the other option is like we start to see this gradual push higher, leading to some sort of fake move, or we start to see rejection and it's going to continue push lower. So again, these are the cards that I'm looking at. And then if we take a look at the divergence, we can start to see again here, we can start to see already that there is some sort of, there's something brewing. So we just need to kind of be aware of this, that there is a reversal pending. Again, it's just a matter of when, and we don't really need to predict that. Again, that's just something I want to stress. We just need to wait for some sort of candle to show us that, yeah, there is an intention here. Okay, so if we take a look at the Japanese yen, or the Japanese yen pairs, so what we was looking at from last week was this kind of idea that we were experiencing or expecting a sell, and the reason for that was because we were seeing some sort of divergence forming here. If we take a look here, there was a very small amount, but it really started to go a bit deeper as we started to go from the last week as well. So my game plan with UJ for this week is pretty much looking at three kind of scenarios. So we're either going to be looking for price to push up, in the sense where as we start to see prices already kind of picking up the pace. And if it does break up and it starts to go into the 132 realm, we could have the opportunity for price to sell back off to the downside. But again, if we're able to get a buy, there is an opportunity that we can hedge it up, and pending that we actually get a buy position, that's another story. But if we do get that, then then it's going to be, it'll give you a good result or kind of profit or position. But again, if we miss that buy position, there's always the retest trade, okay? So don't forget about that. Then the other thing that I was going to say is that if we start to see some rejections, there is a sell-off on hands. It depends if we start to see some sort of wick candle to the downside with that momentum sell-off. Then we can start looking for sells. And then the other scenario, which is this is potentially going to continue to drop off lower and melt. And again, this is possibly a part of a pullback to go lower. So this is basically this scenario here. Okay, so if we take a look into CJ, so I believe it's going to be a very similar story with the Japanese yen pairs in terms of scenarios, but I'm just going to show you what I'm talking about as well, rather than just quickly skim past. But yeah, with CJ, I have three scenarios again. So what we're looking at is a nice push up and then a continuation to go higher into 103 and beyond. If this does happen, then again, if you do miss that pullback, again, there is that opportunity potentially. We don't know for sure, but there is a retest trade to push higher, or we could expect some rejection and momentum lower, in which we could start to sell. So again, buy and sell hedge. Then the third scenario which I'm looking at is for price to drop off low into the week, and just to continue pushing on lower, because as you can see, we've got all this to cover. We've just been consistently pushing higher and higher. So like I said, we are experiencing or expected to have a look at some sort of turnover at some point. So there's not necessarily too much divergence here. There is perhaps something brewing on the upside. So because it's down divergence there is a pullback potential. That's why I'm looking at the idea that this could continue higher. But again, we don't really 100% know for sure. Again, this is all probability based, so that's why we have these scenarios to kind of predict what we could expect. And if we do it all ahead of time, then we can just follow and eliminate, cross and eliminate certain scenarios and adjust the plan. Okay, so if we take a look into EJ, similar story again. We could be expecting either a push lower for us to look for a buy. Again, we're not necessarily sure if price is going to drop lower, or if this low is going to hold as a support level as the lower high. And if this is the case, if we're able to get a buy position here and this holds as support, there is a possibility that this could break into 140. So it starts to do like so. But if we start to experience some kind of difficulty around this, and we're starting to see some heavy sell-off and rejection, then there is that off chance that we could be selling off. And again, as I was saying before, we've just been pushing since March, well, just pretty much this whole year. So again, I'm expecting this sell-off soon. It doesn't have to be this week, but again, we're focusing week by week. Mainly, we don't need to be right on the macro, we just need to be right on like the micro elements, and then that's where obviously the profit is really, obviously depending on your stop losses, of course. But if we do get a sell and this is part of a sell-off pullback to go lower, then it gives us the best mindset to kind of look for sales and be ready for that, but also be mindful that there could be buys. So just kind of a mix and match. And then this is pretty much just in the case where if price does really want to rally, it has the opportunity to break 140. So it's pretty much a similar scenario combined with this really. So I'll let you kind of take away get the takeaways from that in terms of the scenarios, but that's what I'm pretty much looking at with EJ for now. Yeah, so let's take a look at AJ. So with AJ, again, we're either looking out for price to make some sort of buying position, but we're going to be mindful again for those sell-offs, similar with EJ. And if we're able to get in some early buys, there is that opportunity to get that pullback entry and, you know, have that possible move that it's going to break the 95 level and potentially push higher. Again, this is why we could also look at for sells. I know it's a 50-50 scenario, but again, we need to have these scenarios just so that if we do experience some sort of, you know, rejection candle and a heavy sell-off, you know, we're prepared and we know what we're doing. And so if that's the case, we're probably going to look for some sells lower, and it could take out 87 and beyond. So something just to keep your mind out for those pairs. So that's the Japanese yen pair. So I'm going to take a look into the last two pairs now. So it's the US dollar, but on the flip side. So as we've been experiencing USD Swiss, it's just been consistently pushing up higher and higher. So I've pretty much kept the analysis the same as last week because I am experiencing or expecting a sell-off soon, and I'm going to match that with my the divergence that's just been consistently forming from week on week. We're not entirely sure when it's going to happen, but we don't need to guess, like I said. We just need to wait for that momentum to show us that it's there, that there are sellers stepping in, and then this could really drop. The other scenario is that, you know, we're going to find a pullback at some point and just fly up. So what I was saying in the previous recorded version, because obviously, like I said before, the mic cut out, I was saying that, you know, with the dollar dropping, it's not necessarily a good thing, because this could obviously affect the world economy as it is. So as we know, the Swiss franc has been pushing up very much aggressively for 5 weeks straight now. 5 to 6 weeks, that's a lot. And usually whatever you know, whatever falls must obviously come back down. So sorry, whatever, I don't know what, I think I butchered that analogy, but you know what I'm trying to say. Whatever kind of like grows high, it obviously must have to come back down, right? So in terms of the market, this has just been pushing. At some point there has to be a drop off, right? So it, depending on how aggressive this sells off, I'm not sure, but I'm quite concerned about how aggressive the US dollar has been pushing up, and if this does drop off and if this does sell off, you know, it could be very aggressive, and if it's aggressive, it's going to be very detrimental to the economy as itself. Again, if it's consistently pushing lower and lower and lower, it's going to be quite harsh, I think. But just by looking at the charts, it does look worrying. And the reason why I'm saying this is I just wanted to have some sort of record on this, because it looks like a bubble. Something's forming, and I just wanted to have it on record at some point. So 15th of May, that's pretty much where I'm thinking that there is a bit of concern, but I've already had this concern before, but that's another story in itself. But back to the analysis, like I said, potentially looking at some sells soon if we start to see some sellers step in, or we're going to have that continuous pushing up in price, and we're not entirely sure when that is. So both of them, we just have to kind of keep our eyes peeled and see where we go with that. So looking at last pair for today, so USD Cad. So again, what I was mentioning here is that we could be looking at for a pullback on in a way to go higher. So that is this here. But with that being said, because it's quite of a bigger scale, there is some profits to take if we're looking for a short-term sell. So it could look something like this. So price just drops lower, comes back, pull back to go lower, and then we're not sure what could happen, because if we've got a sell position here, that's great, but if we're starting to see some rejection here to go higher, then it could give us an opportunity to buy, which would obviously be a sell here and a buy to hedge to go higher. And then here we could either blow the roof of 131, or we could face some sort of rejection and drop lower, really dependent on what kind of candlesticks are going to form, and if we see rejections and whatnot itself. So yeah, that's pretty much my kind of options so far with all of the, well, with USD Cad and obviously all of the other pairs so far. So I believe that's all I covered. It was a shame that I couldn't, well, you couldn't see in this week the previous analysis annotations, but obviously you're more than welcome to go back and check that last week. But there was a few annotations or scenarios that were wrong. I believe it was CJ, I think, but a few of them were correct, so hopefully you managed to get some benefit from the video. But like I said, if you did get any value from this video, leave a like, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll leave you with this video, and hopefully it helps. So I'll see you all guys next week, and thank you very much for your time and for listening.